Hello, Richard here from E&C Airsoft. We are going to be testing this HK416 Delta that came in and unfortunately ended up in our project pile. It's amazing how things start off as normal and then just devolve in gun teching. Become just overly complicated, and we have two separate queues. We have our normal queue that Andy works through every day, and then obviously separate of that we have we'll call it the project or complicated queue, you know, where things are effectively taking more than one day to be completed and or custom work. So this one obviously sort of joined that queue effectively, but I'll talk about it as I go through. So it came back from a customer that had wanted some more work doing on it, but also had some issues with it. So so if I go through the requests one by one, so change the trigger to the original HK416 trigger from a Prometheus one. So we've gone back from the Prometheus one to the original HK416 trigger there. So that's changed. Change the trigger guard to a BCM trigger guard. So obviously it's, you know, real steel trigger guard. So there were some more mods, and that's now on and in place. So that's fitted. We've got to remove the flash hider. There were some notes there about it being difficult to remove, so that's off now, just to confirm. So there was changing the handguard rail from the original one to a HAO one, or HAO, however you pronounce it, for the 416 rail with included barrel nut. So that's installed, so that's on there. Swap out the charge handle for a Giesselle charge handle, so that's now been changed over. Then there's change the buffer tube sling mount for a FERRO Concepts real steel sling mount. Obviously that doesn't fit NGRS because it's a very specific sizing for NGRS, not real steel. So we have basically removed material from the inside of the FERRO Concept ones, removing down to, so basically it's about 3mm thick now all the way around on the ring. So obviously we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that we have removed material, so it isn't what it previously was in terms of strength, you know, from the real steel part, you know, because they obviously made it very thick and it was, you know, functionally tested to withstand, I don't know, whatever real steel parts can stand, obviously all the shock of real guns, but you know, like I say, it's on there, it's solid. 3mm still a decent amount of metal. You know, I feel fairly confident, if you know what I mean, that you can use that with no issues, but technically we do have to technically mention it, you know, so just from a technical perspective. Yeah, and covering us as a shop. So but yeah, so that's modified and fit, and obviously hopefully like the aesthetics on that. Then we've also done another question was you're aware that there's no third-party grips available. Yes, it is a problem with 416. There are no third-party grips available, and it does take a specific grip for 416. The 416 lower receiver is essentially wider than the M4 receiver, so obviously if you put any M4 grips on there, they would be too narrow for the gun. So like I say, to not only accommodate obviously the thickness of the lower receiver, but also to fit all the ambi selectors and stuff that are down here basically for the gun, and obviously the bit at the back. So a customer requested that we order a TM 416D grip to fit on there, which is easier said than done. So obviously we were leaning down that route, and we offered the customer that, but then he did say, can we possibly do a tan version of the grip instead of the black one, because obviously the black one technically comes off the 416D, and although aesthetically it does have a bump there, so it is a slightly different style, it's pretty close to what the customer was looking for aesthetically, just obviously not in the right colour. That would have got us done reasonably easy time frame wise, although obviously the hassle from finding the grip. When we found the grip and then offered the grip, obviously the customer preferred to do the tan one. So I had a look at that. Obviously we were working on another gun for another customer at the time, and it started to look like this was getting possible and something we could do. So obviously we offered the customer option, and he wanted to go for this particular grip. So we did basically sort of two at the same time. The first one obviously was on there and worked, and obviously looked great on the previous gun we've done. And then obviously this second one, we just went a little bit further, and this time we made sure that the ambi functionality works with it as well. So so obviously all the ambi still works, and obviously it's got the custom grip on there. We'll try and do a guide at some point, where we just put the details, but essentially you have to remove loads of material from the inside of here until it's around about 1 millimeter thick on each side. And then obviously once you've done that, you have to then cut a nice round here shape, basically at the back for the ambi in the exact position that it needs to be, so that when it goes on, it holds the ambi close enough to this. If you take off too much material, then obviously as you put that on, it will sit too low and it will just skip over it. Okay, so there's no, I can't give you measurements. I remove material until it worked, and that's the easiest thing I could say there, because obviously it wasn't easy. It was incredibly time consuming, so to sit there and do it, and like I say, probably over my dead body would I do it again. So but I don't know, maybe we'll see how the queue goes with regards to our workshop. That's the problem with our workshop. It can theoretically, and this is the problem with the project queue in general, we could do theoretically anything. So we could sit here and work with suppliers to make parts if we have to, but A, obviously money, but B, it's time. Obviously our regular queue has constant guns being ordered, which is fantastic, and obviously we're always flattered when people decide to use this, but obviously keeping that queue going is really important for somebody that orders a £1,000 gun and then obviously ideally wants it this century, so obviously and if we keep saying yes to every single gun that comes in, it makes it, the amount of people that probably want me to fit this grip onto their gun is probably quite long. So but to sit here and now start accepting those in, like I say, it would then just have an effect on the other orders that are already in, and it's not fair. So the same goes with obviously custom PSG ones and custom whatever, so obviously every time we go off on a tangent and make something cool, quite frankly cool, because this is very cool, it does take up a lot of time, but in hindsight now, when I sort of stand here and look at it, I'm quite happy, so and I'm glad that we did it, because obviously it looks aesthetically brilliant, and I'm very proud of the work, so hopefully the customer enjoys it, and obviously for everybody else that's watching, we will obviously try our best to and I call it mainstreaming, so this custom work as best we can. We've got a new website going live soon, which hopefully is going to give us a bit more time back from our admin that we keep having to do. We're trying to automate as much as we can, streamline as much as we can, so that we can have time to sit here doing these fun things, so but anyway, that's on, and that's a rough description of obviously how we installed it. And like I say, aesthetically, I think it looks good. This is lovely and smooth, and obviously I can't tell you about the long term of it. I wouldn't be swinging this around, if you know what I mean, by its the end of it. But it's lovely and robust on there, and like I say, the shimming is as good as you can get, if you know what I mean. With obviously changing the angle on these grips, but we'll obviously demonstrate that in a bit, and I think it sounds fine. But obviously, I haven't gone out and fired this gun for 2 years, so proof is in the pudding with regards to the longevity. Hopefully it's all good, but I say it's truth is a custom gun is generally built by somebody and then used by somebody, so we sort of skip that part. We have to send it out, and the long-term testing is ultimately with the customer. So but fingers crossed, which is why we're obviously doing a stress test today, and that's pretty much it. Obviously there was some notes here about overhopping on 2.5s. Well, obviously with our hop, it's kind of built for 3.2s. If you go to a CQB arena, then and need those 2.5s, then we've done, we've changed out the barrel and hop rubber for a Psionic one. So the Psionic one puts a lot less hop than the previous one I think we had installed. But like I say, you might have possibly lost a little off the max range. But obviously now with thing, it's the problem with obviously hop units being variable. You can never make them perfect for both 0.2s and 3.2s and everything in between. Although the hop unit is variable, obviously the concept of the R hops is that they don't have a large protruding bump that's lowered down into the barrel. So you want a flat, long contact patch. And obviously the more we wind on the hop, to push through that contact patch, the more we create a hill effect, a bump, which moves it more away from our hop style to more of a sort of, original TM Prometheus style, the bump effect, which obviously creates, in my opinion, more of an arched shot. And obviously we're trying to avoid that with our hop by having a flat line shot to target, even if they end up being sort of around about the same distance. It's a lot of people obviously want that sort of holy grail of that flat line to target. And obviously the 3.2 ammo helps with keeping that shot down and keeping it, because it's such a heavy ammo. So it ends up being this flat, long, straight shot with obviously a combination of, say, our hop and 3.2s, and it just keeps going flat and flat, flat for ages, because obviously huge amounts of spin, which is obviously keeps wanting to go up, but it can't, because obviously the weight of the ammo. So then we switch to some 2.5s. Obviously it's going to be a thing. So it kind of ruins the whole design concept, if you know what I mean, of what we're trying to achieve. Now we can back everything off and then just have normal hop rubbers and normal things, and they have a much better tolerance, if you know what I mean, for switching between 2s, 2.5s and 3.2s, we're then sacrificing obviously that the extreme custom that people are looking for in guns, so the extra range, the extra accuracy, the more damage, and all those sorts of things. We're getting closer to just sort of normal guns, so and obviously we're trying to do performance guns. So I've changed the hop rubber, like I say, in the patch. Hopefully this is a better result. Again, I've tested at range, seems fine to me. So in terms of the 3.2s, like I say, the issue is obviously if you do effectively use ammo on it that it's not quite designed for. So it might be that maybe you can't have one gun that kind of does like everything. It might be that maybe we sort of, like say, you have a separate CQB gun or something like that that's just set up for 2.5s. Because the other issue is obviously FPS. We obviously put the FPS to 273 on 3.2s, which is obviously a fantastic result for 3.2s. That's taking it right up to the UK limit. The problem is now if you put some 2s in there, you'd have to wind the hop off. You'd have to, like I say, get a different reading on 2s, and that could well bring it over the limit and stuff. But since you're never going to use it in theory on 2s, it's pointless to talk about it, because it just doesn't affect and what a gun is capable of doing is not what you're actually doing with it, So obviously we. That's what we recommend, is obviously doing that. And if we obviously then bring the FPS down so that your 0.2 reading is below, that obviously takes 20, 30, sometimes even 40 off your 0.32 weight reading, which means now 3.2s are traveling at, say, 240, 250 feet per second, which is just too slow for 3.2s. So, not too slow, it's fine, but it's not better, you know what I mean? So obviously it's not upgraded, it's not performance, because obviously we know what the limit is and we want 3.2s to go up to it, so to maximize that potential. So we have a very accurate ammo traveling at a really nice pace and travels really far, so i.e. extra performance for the customer. So but like I say, that's all done, and I think that's about it. So hopefully that's everything. And obviously I'll just demonstrate it now just to show that obviously functioning it all works, but obviously the majority of the work and time spent, like I say, and apologies for the length of it, but cause obviously we do juggle different builds and stuff, is getting obviously this to fit, and pretty safe to say that it's one of a kind, well, two of a kind I suppose, because the other customers, although I suppose one of the kind in terms of the ambi working on it, so there's literally, I don't think there's anyone, pretty safe to say there's nobody else in the world that's got one, so which is obviously a nice cool thing. So we hope you enjoy it. I'm just going to demonstrate it now working. So obviously overall, obviously lovely looking gun. So you can always tell when the Leviathans are in there, can't you? can see there's no sort of high-pitched noise to it or anything like that, although obviously when it translates to videos it's sometimes a bit different. But yeah, sounds great in terms of that. Hopefully it stays that way. There we go. So all sorted, and like I say, ambi's working in all modes. Keeps on going. Grip nice and secure. You know, like I say, handling it doesn't affect like you know, the shimming or anything like that. Because obviously it's even though we've obviously removed material on the grip, it's still nice and robust. Yeah, I think aesthetically, obviously, it looks great, and we hope you enjoy it. Any problems, let us know. But like I say, the build description will be in the video. And yeah, it's really nice to, well, for me, just to get some of these project guns done. We've still got quite a few, which we're always working through. At any given moment, there's always going to be a project, because obviously I just like to do it for fun. So, but yeah, it's sometimes a bit of a challenge. But we got there, it's done, and we hope you enjoy. Thank you.